Buenos dias, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Antonio. Our weekly worship is where we connect, share information, and inspiration. My name is Scott Emerson-Price. I've been a member since 2017 and currently serve on the Leadership Development Committee. Let us begin by recognizing the early name of this place, Yanawana, the traditional land of the Qualitica people. They and all the plants and animals were the original stewards of this land. Let us remember their care and live with the understanding that we belong to this place. At our church, we strive to enact a universal love that leads us in mutual care and affection, especially in our work for justice for all and for the planet. Our faith is all-inclusive, and all means all. If you are new to us or visiting for the first time today, we welcome you to fill out a visitor card in the pew in front of you. We'd like to get to know you and follow up with you wherever you are on your life's journey. We hope you will find a place with us.
Good morning. I'm Xolani Kacela, minister here, and I want to invite you to something new. I'm an old kind of quality control process guy, and in my former life, part of my work was to help make things better. So what I want to help us get better in is welcoming members and friends to the congregation. So here's my challenge to you. If you see someone in the church that you don't know, you have 60 seconds to beeline to that person and say who you are and welcome to the church, all right? We call that the 1-minute greeting. And I learned this from places like Golden Corral or restaurants, Texas Roadhouse, where as soon as you walk in, people are welcoming you. So when you're here, if there's someone you don't know, please make a beeline to say who you are and introduce yourself. So now I want you to take a minute to greet your neighbor, shake their hands, give them the right hand of or left hand of fellowship, and welcome them to this community. Our opening words are from The First Week by Laura Eberly, which is from the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association Defund Fear Activist Guide. I'm reading an excerpt from that. If we all agreed to, on Monday, we could plant a pollinator garden on every corner and turn over one parking spot per block to vegetables and fruit. But first, on Sunday, we should assemble all the healers, all the yogis, chiropractors, sangomas, and sage smudgers, and ask them to have coffee with the matriarchs and the refugees and the trans sex workers, and the small town queers, and anybody who has yelled at a marble building through a bullhorn, or raised a child in times of war. And by lunchtime, all of us would learn to locate, heal, and fortify our spines. That evening, the musicians would find our diaphragms and teach us new songs to sing while planting. Saturday, we would rest. Hammocks, creeks, and lemonade. We would listen to the earth and the spirits and our ancestors and our lovers and our beloveds and the bullfrogs and the songbirds and the tall grass and the redwoods and the oak trees breathing for one day every week. Breathing. We light our chalice in the name of mindful activism, overcoming fear, and serving love and truth.
We are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all are welcome as blessings. Let us recite our covenant that articulates our promises and binds us together. Please read together. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. El amor es la doctrina de esta iglesia. Su sacramento es la búsqueda de la verdad. Y su oración es el servicio. Convivir en paz. Buscar unidad, dar a la humanidad nuestro servicio fraternal, para que todas las almas crezcan en armonía de verdad. Así pactamos el uno con el otro.
Our opening hymn is number 347, Gather the Spirit. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit. invite all those who are young or young at heart to come down to the front, please. We got a new little seating mat for people to sit on to be comfortable. And I may need a parent or two to help if things get rowdy up here. Hey there. Well, today we're talking about how to take care of others and take care of yourself and stand up for other people and stand up for yourself. So I want to ask you, has anybody here ever seen anyone being treated mean? You have. Anyone else? A lot of people have seen, they're raising their hands, they've seen people treat others mean. And what do you do when you see someone being treated mean? What'd you say? Stand up for them? And how do you stand up for them? Can you say it a little bit louder? Stop them from being a bully? Okay, you have your hand up. What do?
You actually, if they actually bully to someone that you are, then you should actually say this. I don't know what you said. Can you just get away? I don't need you, and I will tell on you.
Oh, good answer. She said that she would tell them to stop. She says, I don't know what you said, but whatever you're doing, you need to stop and you need to get away. Well, that's a good answer. When I was a kid, I was walking home from school one day, and I had gotten almost home, and all of a sudden, I got to a corner, and I noticed that a bunch of kids had surrounded me, and they were trying to make me fight. I don't even know what I did. I didn't know what took place. I didn't see them coming. All of them, I just knew that they were there, and they wanted me to fight. So someone actually stepped in and stopped them, and just as they were about to stop them, I ran away. Well, standing up for yourself is what we want to talk about today, and I think what you have said is excellent. When you see someone who is being treated badly, you want to stand in and try to stop the bad action, the meanness from taking place. What about with your family? Do you ever see people have that in your family, in your school life, or in family?
I saw a neighbor at my mom's house, and I was like, oh, hey, friends, and then they just started this chain back thing.
She said that she's seen her neighbors treat each other poorly, and she was wondering why were they doing that. So for your homework today is, if you see someone that is being treated meanly, just do what they say. If you see something, say something. All right? Can you remember that? Say that with me. If you see something, say something. And you all can say it with me too. If you see something, say something. All right. Well, you're free to go in peace. All right.
It starts with just a single voice, one It starts with just a single voice.
Thank you, Dr. Dill and choir, for the beautiful music. I want to invite you now to this ritual we have of candle lighting. Remember that we have 3 tables now, one in the center aisle, so I invite you to come now for this meditative practice. From the Community Book of Life, we have one entry. It says, "Hooray for my divorce finalizing." Hooray for freedom. I've been there. Also, for my birthday was last week, and I've been there too. My birthday is Saturday. I'll be 63. I want to invite you to a moment of meditation. You can find your breath and center yourself. Make sure you're comfortable. Today's meditation is from the UU minister, the Reverend Ashley Horan. It's called "Another World is Possible." Another world is possible. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. Not somewhere else, another world, another lifetime, but here and now, for us and for all. Another world is possible. There is no single path toward that world, no one strategy or approach that will restore balance, heal brokenness, sow wholeness, free creation. There are many routes toward liberation, toward freedom, but the abundance of options does not absolve us of the responsibility of acting. Another world is possible. The call, the duty of each moment in history is to discern who are we and what can we bring with humanity, with humility, integrity, and faith. What is the context and how can we address it with agility, resilience, skill? What is the vision and how can we realize it with accountability, relationship, joy? Another world is possible. In this time of despair, of fear, of collapse, this time that is both like every other era and like no other time in history, it is audacious to declare our faith and to commit our work to a world that is more free, more just, more whole. But we are an audacious people in good company with many kin, and we are ready to show up and work hard and stay humble and make friends and hold the vision. Starting here, now, today, with us and persevering, however long it takes, until that other world is not only possible, but another world is here. We ask this in the prayers of our hearts into the silence. We ask this in the name of all persons present and absent, known and unknown, all and remembered and forgotten, and all helpers of humankind. Let us say, Amen. Amen. Ashe. And may it be so, because we make it so. And may it be so, because we make it so. Amen.
The reading is by Caverly Morgan, The Heart of Who We Are. When it's somebody's primary job to embody unconditional love and presence, the effect is powerful. My first Zen teacher's teacher once said, "You will do for the love of others what you would not do for yourself." I always offered this sentiment to those who were wary of taking this seat. I often still do. It can provide wind for the sails. When Janice Martellucci came to my meditation class with her mother in a new shiny Sacramento yoga studio, I can assure you she did not know that 12 years later she'd be the executive director of a nonprofit with a $1.3 million budget, an organization that has the motto, liberate mind and heart. Certainly neither did I. Something shifts in our lives when the primary focus of our attention is on serving love and truth. One need not be running a nonprofit to live a life in alignment with your deepest love and understanding. For some of us, this will take the form of being an artist. For some of us, we will, in fact, have jobs that the conditioned mind might label mundane, but that have deep meaning based on the quality of presence we bring to them. It's not about the what, it's all in the how. This is about the process of serving love and truth, of getting out of the way and allowing life to live through you. This direct experience then informs our actions, and this cannot help but change what we build in the world and how we build it.
Today we're talking about the art of mindful activism. So I begin with a question. Who wants to be the type of person who inspires people into action? When you stand up, others will rise. When you speak out, others will find their voice. I saw one hand going up. I'm hoping to see more. Should I repeat that question? Who wants to be the type of person who inspires others into action? Me, all right. That's what I'm talking about. No matter what you've been taught, you have the power within yourself to lead others in causes for justice, compassion, and transformative change. Despite what many believe, none of us has a predetermined life. None of us have predetermined skills and abilities. There are many individuals who do have gifts for reading, speaking, and solving difficult equations people can intuitively understand, an isosceles triangle or something like that. But not having these gifts doesn't mean that you can't develop them. We are only limited, my friends, by our imagination and our capacity to dream big. By adding mindfulness and awareness of thoughts, feelings, and motivations to the equation, we can transform our desire to be change makers into true action. I grew up with parents who fed my passion for reading by filling their house with many books. And there were magazines lying all around the house and at my family's funeral home business. There was always something to read. And when I entered adolescence, my mother got a subscription to the New Yorker magazine, which is the thinking person's reading material. I loved scanning that magazine, but mostly I was looking at the cartoons. But despite all those books and magazines, I did not know how to think. Then I met a guy who lived down the street from my cousin on Bedford Avenue in Columbus, Georgia. His name was Jeff Buchanan, and he was a year younger than I and a good friend of my cousin's, and we became kindred spirits. It took a while for me to figure out why I was so drawn to Jeff, but then it hit me. He talked about ideas. And you see, ideas are one of the highest forms of thought process. First, you have people who talk about people. And then the next level, you have people who talk about what people do. And on top of that, you have people who talk about ideas. Despite having all those books, I was not an idea person. I didn't know how to be mindful. I was what they call consciously conscious. I knew that I didn't know something I needed to know to be a better person in the world. And that knowledge became my calling card to act on my behalf, which is a first step in mindful activism. Being conscious is only one definition of mindfulness. Ellen Langer is a professor of psychology at Harvard University who became the first woman ever tenured there in psychology. She studies the illusion of control, decision-making, aging, and mindfulness theory. I first heard Dr. Langer on the radio program On Being with Krista Tippett. Langer has a raspy voice and a distinct style of confidence, but I got the feeling that she wasn't the type of person that took herself too seriously. She's an expert on mindfulness. Langer's definition of mindfulness is not religious nor spiritual. She defines mindfulness as the process of paying attention on purpose to the present moment, of being aware of novelty in experiences or situations, and perceiving differences in context and events. In other words, wherever you are, notice the slight differences. But paying attention is hard work. And I have to admit, I am not the best person at paying attention to the small differences. In fact, almost every day I go home, my wife asks me, "Did you notice that I did on the house?" And I'll have to say, embarrassingly, I didn't pay attention. But the most striking takeaway from the Langer interview wasn't about mindfulness, but about boldness. Langer described how she overcame fear, which helped me overcome fear. She told a story of losing 80% of her household possessions, her earthly possessions, in a fire. And when she called the insurance company the next day, they came over, and the agent said to her, that was the first call he had ever had where the damage was worse than the call. And Langer thought about his words, and she said to herself, well, gee, it's taken my stuff already, whatever that means. Why give it my soul? Her story helped me to reframe 99% of the situations that I encounter that would give me reason to pause or to be afraid. Instead, I use her experience to become more mindful and develop an ability to dispel fear, because I know I have survived many fire-like experiences in my life. As I wrote this sermon, I tried to recall the most fearful experience in my lifetime. And to keep it 100, that is, to keep it real with you, I had a hard time remembering those difficult things that caused me pause or caused me deep fear. I like to think that I have grown in mindfulness, and those experiences didn't take my soul. But early on, I know some of those experiences did take some big chunks of my soul. I've had things happen to me that left me virtually catatonic, that is, unable to speak. Speaking of which, let's take a moment of silence to remember that great American with the great voice, James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones died this week at the age of 93. Jones had a great fear of speaking, but he overcame his great fear when he was challenged by a teacher in school to recite a poem. Jones said that before that, he was so embarrassed because of his stutter that he went on for years not speaking at all. But on this day, he was in class and they were tasked with writing poetry. And the poem that Jones turned in was such that the teacher did not believe he could have written it. So to prove that he had written this poem, the teacher said, I need you to come up front right now and recite the poem from memory. Jones went before the class, recited the poem from memory exactly as he had written it, and immediately the teacher said he knew that Jones had a great speaking career ahead of him. And indeed, we all know that he overcame his fear in a great way. He became the voice of CNN, and of course, the voice of Darth Vader. Jones is an EGOT, one of 21 people in the world who's won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony Award. On Friday, the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association dropped a new curriculum called Defend Democracy. This theme resonates with mindful activism. When I opened the materials, I was pleasantly surprised to see the Defund Fear Justice Activist Common Read curriculum. According to the curriculum, and I quote, "Learning is not the same as activism. Knowing and believing are not the same as activism. The Activist Guide, because its purpose is to prepare you with the knowledge, understanding, and motivation and spiritual guidance to act, is different." So let us understand, end quote there, let us understand defund as refusing to give your soul over to fear. After all, I define fear as false evidence appearing real. F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. Mindful activism demands that you notice the content of your fear and know that it is false. Don't live based on alternative facts created in your mind. I recall once having a boss with whom I had projected my father's persona upon them. And me projecting my dad's persona upon this person created communication problems for me with that boss. Then a friend of mine pointed out that I was using false evidence, and my problem went away immediately. Well, how do we make mindful activism spiritual? Caverly Morgan is the founder and lead contemplative of Peace in Schools, a nonprofit which created the nation's first 4-credit mindfulness class in public schools. Her book, The Heart of Who We Are, says that we must focus our attention on serving, love, and truth. And that totally resonates with the UUA way. Here's a suggestion. Once you notice your fear, act. Act. Acknowledge your fear. Then deliberately shift your focus to taking one small positive action within your control. There's a ton of fear swirling around our culture and society today. And I call this the capital F fear. People are afraid of immigrants. People are afraid of losing jobs to immigrants. They're afraid of losing democracy. People are afraid of a warming climate. People are afraid of crime. People are afraid of what used to be called affirmative action. People are afraid of LGBTQIA folks. People are afraid of rising prices and inflation. People are afraid because we have lost reproductive rights. People are afraid of the high cost of housing. They're afraid of the potential for hate crimes. People are afraid of the impact of racism and classism. People are afraid of living in neighborhoods where people don't look like themselves. People are afraid of the Supreme Court. And people are afraid of the upcoming election. These are capital F fears that are real. But there are also small, lowercase f fears. People are afraid to tell the truth to each other. People are afraid of what people think of each other. People are afraid to admit the truth to themselves. People are afraid to come out as their true selves. People are afraid of declaring who they will vote for. People are afraid to speak up against hate. People are afraid to stand up when they see someone being mistreated in a group. People are afraid to be heard by others, so they whisper. People are afraid of being afraid. Whether you're facing a capital F fear or a small f fear, it's time to defund your fear. Mindfulness, whether you use a traditional definition or Langer's definition, gets you in touch with those things you fear, which prevents you from taking action you need to be a world changer. I'm afraid of GA and PA going from blue to red. So the small action I'm taking is writing at least 10 letters a day to voters or non-voters in the swing states. And here's a quick story about that. I was out last Friday over at Calaveras Lake, fishing, of course, as you know, which I spend my free time, which to me is a meditative practice. And there was another couple sitting under the picnic table. There was no shade out there, so I needed some shade. So I walked over to them and I asked them if I could join them. Well, I took a stack of letters that I was working on writing to send to voters in Georgia, non-voters in Georgia, registered voters who are not voting. And I asked them, could I sit there? They said, sure, join me. So I said to them, I'm writing some letters to people to encourage them to vote. And the woman said to me, I think she was probably about 65 or so, Latina, her partner was Latino. She said, I am afraid of this election. And I said to her, well, tell me why you are afraid. And she says, well, if he is elected, he's going to take away the rights of women. And she went on to talk about her fear of the election and what she's going to do. And she talked about her brother, who had in the past been a Trump supporter. And she said, I told him he needs to switch. And she said, on our last phone call, he told me he's going to switch. And she asked him why. He said, because of my twin daughters. I don't want my twin daughters to grow up with fear and a loss of their dignity and their rights. So I say that story to encourage us to be mindful activists. You can do it wherever you go, wherever you are, whomever you're talking to. It's a matter of defunding your fear. I invite you to take some time to think about the worst thing that has happened in your life. What was it? How did you work through it? And what was the aftermath of that event? When you look back on it now, can you even remember the intensity of the fear? You too have a voice. You may think of it as a small voice that makes little difference in the world. That, my friends, is a small letter F. Indeed, few people's voice has the potential of being that of CNN or Darth Vader. But you need not speak as deeply as James Earl Jones. But it is unnecessary to develop a deep voice to have a meaningful, impactful impact and to be an activist voice. What is this congregation doing to implement a culture of mindful activism? And when I say congregation, I don't mean the Social Justice Committee, the inclusion team, or me. I'm talking about the collective we. Although I've preached twice about activism already, it is not necessarily an interim function. But my sense of activism says to me that I cannot stand by idly without saying something about this moment. I want this congregation to be mindfully activated over the next 50 days. We've got to do something. And we've heard that before, do something. Each of us must do something. We must acknowledge our fear, then deliberately shift our focus to taking many small positive actions within our control. Now is the time to develop and defund our fear. You youths don't live by fear. We have a proud history of standing up and speaking up. This is our time to be mindful activists. And as Ted Lasso said, we fight forward, not backward. Caverly Morgan writes, this is a process of serving love and truth, of getting out of the way and allowing life to live through you. This direct experience then informs our actions, and this cannot help but change what we build in the world and how we build it. Now is the time to be that person who inspires others into action. When you stand up, make sure others rise. And when you speak up, make sure others find their voice. Amen. Ashe. And may it be so, because we make it so. Thank you. Ashe is a Yoruban expression for may it be so.
Thank you, Reverend XK, for the very inspiring, pardon me, for that very inspiring talk this morning. Appreciate your words. I'm Amelia Westney, and I'm a member of the committee of the Trust Fund for Endowment. We're so pleased that today's Share the Plate will go towards the Trust Fund for Endowment. Some of you may be thinking, well, I've heard of that, but I don't really know what it is. And I'll share a little secret. A little while ago, I would have said the same thing. It can be very confusing when we as a church community have a variety of ways to make our financial support known, and including another different endowment fund. So let me clarify. Unlike the Community Responsibility Endowment Fund, which supports very deserving community organizations and initiatives beyond our own church community, the Trust Fund for Endowment supports us. Money in the account helps support the long-term viability of this church. It was established in 1972 to provide financial stability for funding special church needs, maintenance, and improvements. The earnings from the invested dollars have been used for a myriad of needs, like roof repairs and air conditioning. And did you know that the Trust Fund for Endowment helped to build this beautiful sanctuary? Right now, the fund is woefully underfunded. For a church of this size, it should be 3 or 4 times its current value. And if you have another fear, I will add one more to Reverend XK's inclusive list. If you have a fear that this church may not be around in the future, now is your time to act. So we really need your help to build up this important investment in our future. Several weeks ago, we sent a letter to a special segment of our church population, those of us who are older, urging you to consider including First UU in your estate plans. We also established a legacy society that honors those who have given to this to this fund, and there's a plaque in the choir room back there with the names of those individuals. Thank you for your contribution today and any that you can give in the future. I'd like to turn it over to another committee member who has some important words for you.
I'm Wendy Friedman, also a member of the committee, but as well as somebody who has taken the step of including the First UU Church in my will. Why was it important for my husband and me to leave this legacy? Because we know how meaningful it has been for us to find this liberal oasis here in San Antonio. And we want to be assured that it will remain here as a vibrant community for future generations after we're long gone. With other more traditional denominations, there are a multitude of options, but that is not the case with Unitarian Universalism. And with most religious institutions on the decline across our country, it is imperative to be vigilant in protecting our church's future. I don't like to even imagine the possibility of our city without First UU. Now, it just so happens that Jim and I had decided it was time to update our wills last year, so it couldn't have been simpler to simply add a bequest to the church. We chose to leave a certain percentage of our estate, but you might choose to leave a specific dollar amount or a particular fund or account. One of the wonderful advantages of honoring the church with a bequest is that it costs exactly nothing today and won't until you're not around to enjoy the money anymore. And if you haven't gotten around to your own estate planning, you might be interested in attending a retirement planning session to be held after church in October by our very own president, Carol Birch, who happens to be an elder law attorney. However, if a will is not in the cards for you right now, or if you've already drawn one up and you don't understandably want to go to the trouble or expense of making up a new one, there are other very simple options for you to consider that do not require a lawyer. For example, if you have mutual funds, it is a simple matter to fill out a pay on death form and designate a percentage to our trust fund for endowments. For accounts with a beneficiary, for example, an IRA or life insurance policy, you can simply add our church as a beneficiary or a partial beneficiary. And I imagine some of you are thinking, well, I don't really have much of an estate and my children are my #1 priority, and that is completely understandable. But it's not necessary to make a very large sum of money in your donation. For example, perhaps you'd like to leave enough money to fulfill your pledge for a year or two after you're gone. And even if it's never a realistic choice for you to make a bequest, you can help us build the trust fund in the here and now. Perhaps you would like to recognize someone with a donation in honor of a special achievement or milestone, or remember a loved one with a memorial gift. And the option that I most enthusiastically recommend is one that was specifically designed for small, ongoing contributions to the trust fund. So please consider it. Every year around your birthday, make a donation to the trust fund in the amount of your age. So each year it just gets $1 more expensive. You'd hardly even notice it. And please, if you have any questions about any of these options, please ask me or Amelia or Carol or Arliss Olson, who is the chair of our committee and couldn't be with us here today. But now back to the principal reason that Amelia and I are here today, share the plate. We hope you will generously fill the plate with your contribution to the Trust Fund for Endowments. And if you're doing it by check or online, please remember to write Trust Fund in the remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, will the ushers please come forward to receive, hopefully, very generous gifts today while we listen to the beautiful music that Jaime and Debu are offering us.
The first time I heard this piece was about 30 years ago. It's in Italian, and so there's a loose translation for you to follow along. The reason why this song is very special to me is because this is something that I would hum to both my kids when they were small, when I put them to bed at night. Mille cherubini in coro ti sorridono dal cielo, una dolce canzone t'accarezza il crin, un amante guida leve fra le nuvole d'or, sognando e vegliando per te, mio tesor, proteggendo il tuo cammin. Dormi, dormi, sogna piccolo amor mio. Dormi, sogna, posa il capo sul mio cuore. Chiudi gli occhi, ascolta gli angioletti, dormi, dormi, sogna piccolo tesoro.
Thank you, Debu. We give thanks for all the gifts of treasure, time, and talent. Before I invite you to rise in body and or spirit, I want to say that a member came forward and asked that I let you know there's a website called Civic Shout that you can go to practice mindful activism. Now I'll invite you to rise in body and or spirit as we join together in hymn 1018, Come and Go With Me. I'd like to thank Scott for his service in the pulpit today and all those who have joined us in leadership today. Our benediction is from the great author and poet Octavia Butler. Here we are, energy, mass, life, shaping life, mind, shaping mind, God, shaping God. Consider we are born not with purpose, but with potential. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. We extinguish our chalice, and you may go in peace.